5 minutes, the Navy lieutenant told the platoon. I want you on board and strapped in 60 seconds after it lands. Captain Almastori gave the lieutenant a thumbs up. They'd been ready for an hour now, standing in the hangar while waiting for the okay to leave. As soon as the shuttle returned, they'd board in a moment, happy to get off the ship and down to the planet's surface. Sergeant Reverent Pelletier, Perseus Union Marine Corps, shifted his feet, anxious to get on with the mission. Run Poshu's checklist again, he sub-vocalized. Still green, just like it was 5 minutes ago when you last asked. Punch, his AI battle buddy, said. For a hunk of crystals embedded into Rev's brain, Punch could be a little snarky at times. Rev really hadn't thought that his IBHU, the integrated bionic hopological unit that hung from his left shoulder in place of the arm he'd lost fighting the Children of Angels, had somehow gone offline while he waited in orbit. It was just that as a Marine Raider he was normally among the first to enter a combat zone rather than sitting fat, dumb, and happy in orbit while other Marines secured a landing zone. You doing okay, Rev? Tomiko asked over the P2P circuit. I'm fine, just want to get going. How about you, element leader? Hell, you used to be the element leader, so how hard can it be? Yeah, you say that, Miko. You'll see. This was going to be the first time in 3 missions that Rev wasn't the team's second element leader. In fact, he wasn't in an element at all. He was the platoon's package, not a real member, and he didn't like that one bit. With him taken out of the chain of command, Sergeant Tomiko Reiser had stepped up to take over. Rev knew that Tomiko would be fine. The only reason he'd been the element leader before was that while they both had the same date of rank, Pelletier came before Reiser alphabetically. Keep an eye on Radich. This is his first mission. You think? Come on, Rev, I know what I'm doing. Rev winced. Tomiko was a hard-charging, kick-ass Marine, and his best friend. But sometimes he was a little too protective of her, and he'd been on the receiving end of her tirades concerning that on more than one occasion. Sorry about that. I know, Rev, she said, her tone softening. But I've got it. Strap and Carp are experienced. But you haven't worked together for real yet. With Yazzie killed on TRT-36 and Rev pulled from the element, Tomiko had been left as the sole member. So Lance Corporals Mordecai Strap Gans from First Element and Tara Carp Porter from Second Team had transferred over. And now with Private Till Radich so Booty didn't have a nickname yet, the element was at full strength. Rev was no longer leading the other Marines, but he couldn't just turn off his feelings of responsibility. He doubted any Marine sergeant could. Red lights flashed in the hangar, and a moment later the Ibis shuttle was pulled through the curtain and over to LP2, where the tractor beam set it down as gently as a leaf. Yellow shirts ran out to set the chocks, while the flight deck officer shouted, "Go, go!" The platoon, along with another dozen cats and dogs from other units, ran in a line to the back of the shuttle and up the ramp. Rev, in his privileged position, was the last aboard, and he took a seat along the starboard side. It made sense. With Pashu's bulk, he took up more room, so this put no one on his left. But he knew the real reason. He'd be the first one out, and if the shuttle was hit coming in, he'd have the best chance at survival. It was Colonel Trejo, the Ibhu project manager, who called Rev's position privileged. To Rev, it was more like being in a gilded cage. Being the first one, his Ibhu had cost more than a Navy Shrike fighter, and the brass seemed to be afraid to lose their new toy. But if they didn't want him to fight if the situation was too dangerous, then why develop the weapons system in the first place? The ship's tractors lifted the shuttle before the ramp was closed. A few Marines looked up in alarm. Once past the curtain, they'd be in the void, and none of them were geared up for vacuum combat. But the tractors merely spun the shuttle around, waiting for hull integrity. The ramp sealed shut, the red LEDs flashed to green, and the tractor beam shot the shuttle free. At the required distance from the ship, the shuttle's engines powered up, and they started the descent to the surface. "Okay, listen up," the captain passed on the platoon net. "The situation on the ground is hot, but the LZ is secure. As soon as we land, a red patcher is going to take us to our designated assembly point. I want a 360 with Sergeant Pelletier in the center. Remember, we're one of the 3 reaction forces, so we need to be ready for anything. But based on that last comms before the tin asses cut them off, be ready sooner rather than later for a frag order."